Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, USA Today's NFL Wire site. That covers, of course, the Arizona Cardinals with me in episode 758, and it is our second of our two free agency preview show is Seth Cox from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site, as we dive into the defensive side of the ball and the specialists. Our last show focused on the offensive side of the ball and free agency. We know that Kyler Murray will be released. We had a show specific for that one. Seth, we did get the very first news of cap casualties as the Cardinals released aside, like the Kyler Murray thing that's coming, but they released Akeem Davis Gaither. They released Bilal Nichols. The Bilal Nichols cut we knew that was coming, and it makes the 2024 free agent class really bad, especially Sean. And they gained about $11 million in cap space. And would you say that either one of those signings were abject failures? I think Bilal Nichols, by no fault of his own, but that signing was an abject failure, just like Justin Jones.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things too. You know, I kind of joked about it, but being serious, like it's wild to see how much playing time matters, except for at the quarterback position, right? Like we're getting ready to see the Cardinals make a run at Malik Willis, who's thrown 155 pass attempts in his career, and we're lamenting how bad the signing of Bilal Nichols was when he played 233 snaps in 2 years. So like it's funny how that juxtaposition happens in the NFL. Nichols was one of those guys that it was just interesting. He never was injured, and then he came to the Cardinals and he was perpetually injured.
I don't know what the Cardinals had the worst luck with that too. Justin Jones was Jordan Phillips. Like when they signed defensive linemen, that happened to Jordan Phillips, happened to Justin Jones, happened to Bilal Nichols. I do not understand how it happened. I mean, LJ Collier is a different story because LJ Collier has been injured most of his career.
Well, and even Darius Robinson dealt with some injuries, right, but not a ton. And then Walter Nolan, of course, this year. And so, yeah, it's just interesting how much bad luck they had. And you look at it, right. Nichols was a guy that in his career, so from the time he was a rookie in 2018, he was a fifth round pick by the Chicago Bears in 2018. Jess, he never played less than 328 snaps in a season. His rookie season, he played 328 snaps. And then he gets to the Arizona Cardinals and he doesn't play over 175 snaps in a season. Like that's just where people are just like, how does this happen? Right? Like how did this happen?
He hadn't missed a game since 2019.
Yeah, and he plays in only 10 games, plays 234, sorry, I said 233, 234 snaps in 2 years for the Arizona Cardinals. And just, and then Akeem Davis Gaither, we wondered about this one from the jump. It was a wild swing, was it not, Jess?
Yeah,
I mean,
it was.
This was a guy that had been nothing more than a special teams guy, a spot rotational linebacker. He played his career high in snaps in 2024 with 534 defensive snaps. But that was like, and this is where it always gets me. And I know you feel the same way, but like, he played his career high in snaps, and the team that played him in his career high in snaps was like, we got to replace him. Right? Like that's where you're always like, okay. I didn't mind it. It was taking a swing at a guy that has elite athleticism. Maybe you coach him up and he becomes something a little more.
He wasn't an abject failure either, because he led the team with 20 total special teams tackles last season. So he was very active on special teams. So he was in that sense. But when you get him for 2 years, 10 million, that's a different story. He just didn't. And they got Cody Simon. I think they like the combination of Cody Simon and
Mac Wilson
and the other guy.
Yeah, Mac Wilson.
Yeah, Alan Papo too, as the depth back there, and we're going to talk about linebackers, because there are a couple of intriguing options that the Cardinals can go get. I was more surprised, and maybe these are coming, that with these releases, that there's two guys who weren't released, and that's running back James Conner and cornerback Sean Murphy-Bunting, both of whom have big cap hits, neither of whom I would expect to be on the roster. But maybe they are working to reduce their salaries. Now, James Conner, I believe, has a $1 million roster bonus. Let me pull that up, coming up on the 15th. And coming at third, like, it would be an interesting move to bring him back. Yeah, he has a $1 million roster bonus due on the 15th. He's going to count nearly $10 million against the cap, and they could save $7.5 million in cutting him if they were to remake that running back room. And, as good as important as James Conner's been for the Cardinals, the fact of the matter is he's 31 years old now. He didn't look the same in the 3 games that he played, and then he suffered a gruesome injury to end the season. They were managing his workload in the offseason and preseason, and didn't look explosive when the season started. For a team that wants to kind of remake the offense, this is the perfect time to do that. But maybe, just maybe, they're going to he's going to be willing to, rather than be cut, reduce his salary for 2026, and we'll see. I don't know. And the same might be case with Sean Murphy-Bunting, because the Nick Rawls connection, he was there on the sideline all season, basically. So he was still in the building despite the knee surgery. And he's the one guy that's got some experience. Plus Garrett Williams is not going to be ready for the start of the season. We'll see what's happening with Max Melton. To have a veteran guy might not be a bad idea, but to pay him the amount that they're going to pay him, I wonder if they're going to renegotiate that down if he really wants to be here. Were you surprised that they didn't get cut?
Surprise is probably a strong word, but I did think it was going to happen now, with, like you said, the ability to re-sign them and come back and bring them back. So it does make a little bit of sense to kind of watch this. Maybe they're not first wave guys, but yeah, it's coming, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But the Cardinals sit around what now, 50 million in cap space, heading into free agency, which is not great. And so, I mean, I know people say, well, that's better than a lot of, yeah, but when you're a bad team, it's not good. Like that's the bugaboo about the whole thing is like, you got to replace these guys too. Like, you can't go in and not replace Bilal Nichols and Akeem Davis-Gaither. I mean, you can theoretically, right? Like, you can, with the idea that you're going to then, I guess, hope that Walter Nolan and
Chris Robinson.
Darius Robinson are completely healthy, and Dalvin Tomlinson was not a complete bust of a signing. I mean, that you
He
can
wasn't
go
good. I mean, he
right.
wasn't good.
And so like that's the hard part with all of this, is it just creates, the reality, it just creates a little more questions than they have answers. But right now I think this is a team that probably needs to make one or two more plays before free agency starts. So because that's the thing, even they got two options, and I know we're going to talk about if they bring in Malik Willis, but like they have two options with the Malik Willis thing, right? Like they either push it all into year 2 and down the road, even if it's a 2-year $60 million contract, or they just eat that cost this year so that next year, if he doesn't work out, you're not sitting on all that dead money. And that's one of the things that Steve Keim used to do really poorly, right? Was, I mean, we're talking about Kyler right now. They just sat on dead money. That's all they did. They'd love to kick the can down the road and be like, this is somebody else's problem for another day. And so you hope that that's not the plan with Malik Willis, right? But if you sign him, and let's just say they get him on a team friendly, and I use that term loosely, $22 million deal. You're down to roughly 28 million in cap space immediately. Like so like that's the reason they need to continue to get these things worked out. Like you said, James Conner, Sean Murphy Bunting. We mentioned Dalvin Tomlinson, right? Like, yeah, but you make those holes, you also have to fill them, and those two names, and then you throw Dalvin in there. They don't have anybody on the roster to fill those holes with. So
right, and that's the thing is that's the first group we're going to talk about is the interior defensive line, and let's be honest, the free agent class is it's not fantastic, and it's old. Like a lot of your best guys, they're 30 plus. Calais Campbell, I don't see him returning. I don't. Even if the Cardinals wanted him, I don't see him returning. If he plays, I'm 100% certain. Like he had his return to Arizona. If he doesn't retire, he's going to land. Maybe he goes back to Baltimore for one more time, or one of these teams that's going to compete. Because why would he? I don't know. After the season they had last year, it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense. I mean, he was their most productive guy. He was. But so as right now, we've got Dalvin Tomlinson, Walter Nolan, Darius Robinson, Dante Stills entering year 4. You've got questions with you've got LJ Collier, the Bilal Nichols they let go, PJ Mustafer, but he'll be back. He's an exclusive rights guy. Would you bring back LJ Collier? I mean, he's a vibe guy. He's a good locker room guy, a vibe guy. You can get him at probably near the vet minimum, maybe $2 million. Sure, why not? As long as it's non-guaranteed, I'd bring him back because he knows the system. He's been mildly productive when he's played, but they need to do more. Otherwise, they're going to be counting on Robinson and Nolan, and that's been dicey so far because Nolan just hasn't been healthy yet. And Robinson just hasn't been impactful.
Right. And that's kind of where you're at right now. I mean, you mentioned it, you have Dante Stills. I know everybody loves Dante Stills, but like
he's an okay guy,
right?
He's an okay depth guy. He's not fantastic. He gives you a little bit of pass rushing juice. He's a little bit better against the run. He's going to make more money this year. I think he's a $3.5 million guy because of playing time. So we got the salary escalator. But for a defense as bad, I mean, who should they target? Who should they target?
I think John Franklin Myers and Logan Hall are the two targets I would start with. Both on the other side, on this side of 30. Obviously, Franklin Myers closer to 30, going to be 30 this year, but Logan Hall's going to be 26, coming off a good first run with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Franklin Myers, you might be able to get for like a 3-year, 26 million dollar type deal. Logan Hall, you might have to go a little longer, right? You might have to go 4 years, $30 million type of deal. But same general consensus of that 7.5 to 8 million a year. If you want to go a little bit older, I don't mind grabbing a guy like a David Onyemata, but like, are you going to just give him like a 1 year, $10 million type deal? Will he take that? That's the other question, right? Sebastian Joseph Day's been around for forever, been in the division forever. So he wouldn't be a bad depth piece at around 6.5, 7 million, looking at that. Two guys that they probably shouldn't have let go or moved on from, Roy Lopez and Kairos Tonga, both could be back, right, as good depth pieces. Lopez, you're probably going to get in that 5 to 6 million range after what he did with the Lions last year. And then Tonga, you're probably looking at double what he was making, double that 2 million salary, right around 3.5, 4 million. But if you get Lopez and Tonga, I know it's not sexy because they've been here and done that. But if you got Lopez and Tonga, you look at that and you go, okay, depth is handled. Like, yeah, you know what you're getting. Depth is completely handled, and now you're just focused on everything else, right?
Then if you add a guy in the draft, you're like, okay. But they're probably not going to add. Would you say it's probably not going to be a round 1 or a round 2 defensive lineman this year? Would you say?
I mean, you would think not, but I never. you never know with this regime.
3 years in a row, man.
Yeah. The other thing is, like, that's the other question you have, right? We mentioned John Franklin Myers. Is John Franklin Myers better than a Kairos Tonga and a veteran like a Tim Settle or DJ Reader, right? Like, getting both of those guys. That's what the question really becomes for the Cardinals, and that's what we just don't really know right now. Is that this is a situation that it's a little bit different than what we're used to, because they've invested a lot in these positions and they've just not worked out. Like, it's not like the Steve Keim where they just kind of always ignored it, right? Like, that was always with the Steve Keim thing, is you're like, why don't they care about these positions? No, they've probably overly invested in the position and have gotten literally nothing in return. So what's the plan? It's like you spelled it out. It's not a great free agent class. It's a decent draft class, but you've gone the rookie route the last 2 years. Can you afford to do that a third year in a row? Like, don't you need one veteran guy? But of course, your veteran guys didn't work out either. So what do we know, Jess?
Just none of it's working. Yeah. Coming up next on the Rise of Sierra podcast, the Star Cardinals talk on the web. Let's bring it back and talk about the edge at outside linebacker and at inside linebacker. That's coming up next on Rise Up Sea Red. We're back on the Rise Up Sea Red podcast, the Star Cardinals talk on the web, as we move on through our defensive free agency preview. As we move to the edge, we move outside to the edge where the outside linebackers play and the off-ball backers. Now, Josh Sweat returns. Zaven Collins and Baron Browning are under contract for 2026. BJ Ojolari is under contract. Jordan Birch is under contract. But outside of Josh Sweat, the production was near zero. And even Josh Sweat, if once it was in the fourth quarter, he produced a big fat goose egg. They're not, I mean, are they going to not address this position in free agency? Or like, because I know Zaven, they love Zaven. And well, what do you think they're going to do? because also the edges are not, ooh, there's not a lot of sexy out there, unless you want old. Like you could give Cameron Jordan a homecoming. He grew up here in Arizona, but he's 36, almost 37 years old. Trey Hendrickson at age 31. You've got Khalil Mack at age 35. Leonard Floyd at age 33. Von Miller at nearly 37, and he still wants to play. I mean, what are the this is a weird, like, because thank goodness they got Josh Sweat, but what's the next plan that they can do?
That's the hard part, right? We talked about Caleb Chase on, he had a decent season for the Patriots. He kind of fits their long athletic mold, and he's not going to overly cost you. Obviously the sexy names are Trey Hendrickson and Odafawe Owe, but I don't see either of those happening. Jalen Phillips, is another one. Kind of bet on himself, had a great season. Quiddy Pay, those are the guys that are going to get 18 plus million a year. So what if we go to the next one and we look at like a Boye Mafe, right? Like former Seahawks player, you bring him in, he's still young. He could really help and take some of the pressure off of Josh Sweat. We mentioned Chase on, you've got guys that play in a different like style, like an AJ Epinesa. Those are the names that are out there, but yeah, it's just not, like you said, it's just not a great, like the top end, that 17 plus million is really, really good. And then you're taking a flight on some guys that haven't had too much success thus far, right?
Yeah, a name that kind of intrigues me is Arnold Ebiketie. Played for the Falcons. We really liked him coming out of college because of the Penn State elite athleticism, the testing numbers that he had, and he did have 2 6-sack seasons, which would be better than any Cardinals edge guy other than Josh Sweat over the last 3 years, it seems. But if you can get him to be kind of out of, add him to the mix of the Baron Browning and maybe something works. But maybe, BJ, we can count on BJ one more time. He's in the last years of his career, but his contract.
But this is also what the problem is when you just don't move on from like the whole staff, that you end up with guys, in Nick Rallis and Monty Ossenfort, who these are the guys they invested in. So like, let's run it back one more time. It's like, hey, it hasn't worked, so no, right? Like,
who we could bring back, who's a free agent, is good old buddy Cam Thomas, who we loved, and just didn't fit in the Gannon defense, and honestly hasn't done much. He had 2.5 sacks last year. His best season was his rookie year when he had 3 sacks. Man, Cam Thomas is a guy I wanted to be good. He seemed to look like, it seemed to everything. Apparently it was just the mental sign, because he had the physical traits. He has the effort. He just, I don't know. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. But yeah, this is a weird group. I'm looking at this roster, and because they have guys under contract, and you're like, are they really just going to roll it back? Are they just going to roll it back with the same guys that were bad? I mean, if you want to get crazy, you're going to bring in Azeez Ojulari, and bring it in with BJ. And he played a little for the Falcons, but he didn't have any sacks last year. Only played 3 games, but this isn't, I don't know. Like Josh Sweat, like you were looking at Josh Sweat's the guy, but now you're looking at it's kind of, they have to go with round one, don't they? It's not like if they want to make an impact, they got to go with like the Arvell Reese or the David Bailey or the Ruben Bain. They have to, right?
Yeah, and you just have to look at it and see that that's the way to build consistently. Is a guy like Josh Sweat should have been brought in to pair with a guy that they took at the top end. And instead we see that he's the guy that's expected to save it, and all these guys that they've kind of sort of invested in, like that's what people don't get about like the Zaven contract is they're paying him as a guy that doesn't rush the passer. And I know people would be like, well, it's still a lot of money. It's, and relative to what edge guys are making, it's really not. So that's what the problem becomes, is that you haven't hit on these flyers, so to speak, and now you're just kind of stuck, right? And so now it's like, yeah, you can't, can you afford to pass on a Ruben Bain if he really is the guy that you grade that high? Now you and I and our buddies have discussed, like, is Bain a guy that they won't target because he lacks the athletic profile in terms of length and things of that nature? um that's what the question really becomes, right?
And then we move to the off the ball backers. Akeem Davis Gaither's not coming back. They just cut him. Mac Wilson returns. Now the question is whether they want to use Mac Wilson again as their Mike, or do they want to give Cody Simon the Mike job, move Mac over to where he seemed to be more productive in his first season in 2024? Or do you go get a guy? Because there's a perfect one that Rawless knows that would be a perfect fit and probably won't be too expensive. And that's Nakobe Dean, who played for Philly, who had a good year a couple of years ago. He has that body type and the ability to be a big time Mike. Do you, or how do you, like, should they go get someone else, or should they let Cody Simon develop alongside with Mac Wilson? Because when Mac Wilson got hurt, that's when the defense fell apart. And so we noticed that the moment, because he got hurt against Dallas, and Cody Simon calling the defense, they didn't win again. And they gave up 30 plus, what, 6 times?
Yeah. Yeah, man, so, it's a tough one, and that's what the problem becomes, is that, when you look at the free agent class, and you mentioned it, it's just this might be the class that you go and try to get somebody. You have the option of veterans, Demario Davis, right? Legit veteran, even a Caden Ellis. But then you have guys that are in that cusp. Bobby Okereke from the Giants, and then the one that's really interesting, Quincy Williams. Obviously, other side of the ball from Mike LaFleur, but was in New York the same time as LaFleur. You mentioned a Kobe Dean, $8 million there, but his running mate when they were both at Georgia, Quay Walker. These guys are all impressive, and they all bring a little something that this team has needed for a while. I think you got to go veteran here. I'm a big fan of some of the talent in this draft class at the off-ball linebacker position, but I just think you have to get a veteran presence in there, because I just don't know if you can run it back with those guys.
LaFleur would know Christian Roseboom. He's a big thumper. Who's the guy out of Kansas City that you were?
Oh yeah, Leo Chanel. I would love Leo Chanel, but like he's a risk. He's like in the, obviously he's played a little more, but he's a Akeem Davis Gaither type, right? Like he's an
Yeah.
elite athlete that hasn't been asked to do a ton as a linebacker. And so like you're taking a shot, but that athleticism and that instinct makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a free agencies. It's not as cut and dry, but like N'Kobe Dean, Leo Chanel, the Dean. I think I like that one the best because I think we have the best upside with him. And if you pair him with Mac Wilson, you can slide Mac Wilson back over to the other where he can rush the edge, he can do this and that. You put Cody Simon, get Cody Simon back into being special teams, and maybe in year three, maybe in year three after Mac contract goes, that he can step into that role because as a rookie, he was fine like on the field, but the defense was terrible when he was on the field. So yeah. It's not exciting. Coming up next on the RSC Red podcast of SR Cardinals Talk on the Web, let's move to the defensive backfield and the specialists. What can the Cardinals do in in free agency that way? That's coming up next on RSC Red. We're back on the Rise of Sierra podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the Web. Cornerbacks and safeties. Cornerbacks and safeties. The corner position's interesting for the Cardinals because they have a lot invested in it in youth. You got Max Melton from 2 years ago. You got Will Johnson. Star Thomas is a restricted free agent. We'll see how that goes. They might want to bring him back, but non-tendered. They still have Sean Murphy Bunting on the roster right now. Garrett Williams on the roster coming off the popped Achilles. So we will see what they have because it is mostly young. And there are some guys. There's some guys out there. Is there anyone that excites you in free agency?
I mean, there's definitely some exciting guys, right? But the problem becomes how much can they invest in this position? I think, the initial guys that you look at and that you say like make some sense or guys that have been around. I mean, Roger McCreary's coming off a career year. He was with the Rams. Like, would they be willing? Is he a guy that they'd want to go get?
He's got the Tennessee Monty Austinfort connection.
Yeah, but you also wonder if that would be a negative on that side of things, right?
That's true. That's true.
But the guy that I really like that makes to me the most sense, and he's a guy that you bring. You see if you can get him on this type of deal, and if he doesn't want it, then you move on. But Jamel Dean, the corner out of Tampa Bay, we talked about him. What was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when they were going to go after him, and they did, and it just didn't work out. And with Dean, it's one of those situations where you look at him and he's kind of on that backside of his career, but you don't need him for 5 years, right? You need him for probably this year, and then he can take a back seat. But that's the question: is he going to want to take a 2-year, $25 million deal, knowing that you're still working and hoping that Max Melton works out, and that you're still working and hoping that Garrett Williams comes back healthy and ready to go? That's a lot of questions. The next guy I would look at is Alontae Taylor. He's a couple years younger, so if you were to get him, at 4 years and $50 million, it would make a little more sense. Josh Jobe is another one that I really, would be interested to see what they thought about him.
You go with the Rams connection, Kobe Durant.
Yeah, Kobe Durant, and as I mentioned, McCreary would both be interesting. This is a pretty strong class. It's just a matter of like what you're looking for, right? Like how much are you willing to spend? You're probably not going to be in on Nahshon Wright, right? That's the top guy. He's probably going to get 16 to 17 million a year. I don't even know if they're going to be in on guys like Dean, Taylor, and Jobe, right? That 12 million a year type of thing. So like, what about a guy like Reek Woolen, right? That's had a really up and down career, but
it's a very, very talented, but that he's the DK Metcalf of defense with his head case problems.
Yeah, and so you've got a lot of options. The thing to remember about Job, and I keep forgetting this, so I think we should mention it. He started his career with Philadelphia. He was on that Super Bowl losing team with Gannon and Rallis and those guys. So like he knows, like Rallis knows him. So that'll be an interesting one. But yeah, I mean the corner. I think you have to get a veteran. I think they have all the young talent that they need. They got to get a veteran, man.
And if we look at safety, Jalen Thompson is a free agent. We expect him to move on.
Yeah.
Which potentially allows for Rabbit, Taylor Demerson, to slide into that role. The one where, he is more of a ball hawk than Buddha, but having two guys that size on the back end, maybe it's just me. I think I would prefer to have Buddha paired with a bigger, coverage safety that has some size to him.
Yeah, there's a couple of those, right? Jaquan Brisker, the safety out of Chicago. He's had a nice little career so far. Still young, only going to be 27 this year, so you could get him. Coming out. Cam Curl, who was with the Rams, he's a guy that's going to be really interesting to see where he ends up, because he's had a really nice, career, and really, I mean, he's the 6'2", 207-pound guy, and never been an all pro or anything like that, but he's another, big time safety, done a lot of things, been asked to do a lot of things for the Rams. So obviously, like we've said before, a little familiarity. I know other side of the ball, but a little familiarity there. The exciting whites might be getting broken up. So Reed Blankenship, who was with Rallis his rookie season in Philadelphia, he's a free agent. So there's some guys, but Kobe Bryant's kind of the one, right? Like if you're going to bring somebody in, and you kind of mentioned all of this, but like if you're going to bring somebody in, somebody that offers a different skill set than the two really talented, but kind of different safeties. Like this is a guy that the last 2 years as a starter has 7 interceptions, has 13 passes defensed. He's not going to put up the tackle numbers, right? He's got 73 and 66 the last 2 years. He's not going to put up the tackle numbers, but that's not what he's there for, right? He's a guy that does a good job in coverage and has been an effective guy as a coverage safety. Now, the one thing with him is he had his career high in missed tackles this year, and that's obviously an issue for the Cardinals. But I think he would, he'd be an interesting fit. But safety is going to be interesting because can you really invest that much more in it? That's something we've talked about for years with this club, right?
Yeah, but they need. Let's not spend too much money at safety, right? Guys that can do the job. They need one. Now, you know what they actually need though? They need specialists. They don't have any punters under contract. They don't have any kickers under contract. They don't have a long snapper under contract. What are they going to do? And with the new head coach and with the new special teams coach, I wonder what the plan is.
Yeah.
At that position. I'm going to figure that long snapper is Aaron Brewer, unless he doesn't want to come back, unless he's ready to retire. And other than that, what do they do at kicker? Because they're going to non-tender Ryland. Josh McCarty, he is what was his contract situation? I think that's not true. While Carty is not under contract, he's an exclusive rights free agent. And so I would guess they'll bring him back. And maybe as simple as they're going to re-sign Ryland at a low tender, not a tender, but a low contract, and have them compete. But that doesn't sound all that exciting. Based on Cardi couldn't stick with the Rams, and Ryland went from being very good 2 years ago to being inconsistent. And we can talk also about he had 3 different holders over the course of the year between Gillikin and Pat O'Donnell and Matt Hawk. But the kicker market, is there anyone that you're like, ooh, let's go get that guy? Or is it a matter of just have the competition between Cardi and Ryland and hope someone comes through?
I think that's how it starts, right? Like that's I mean, and he's a Ryland's a restricted free agent, so they've got.
But it's only like that's only if they tender it, and they're not going to tender him. So,
and then you mentioned it. The hard part is like, where do you go? I mean, you look at the kickers that are available, and there's some names, but like names have never really worked out for the Cardinals, right? I mean, Daniel Carlson's been fine. Are you going to want to pay Joey Sly? Like, he's the best guy on the market, but I mean, Brandon Aubrey's technically the best guy on the market, but you're not going to give up 2 first-round picks for him, right? When they tender him or whatever.
No. Here's who I like, and go get Jake Moody. He's now been on a couple of teams.
I was thinking, Moody or even Blake Grupe, the kid from the Colts.
Because Moody's talent is undeniable because he was so good, and Cardinals fans remember Zane Gonzalez, like he was that good in college, and he's just been more inconsistent. But when he went to Washington, in fact, like after getting cut by the 49ers, he missed only 2 kicks the rest of the year. He missed 2 kicks for the rest of the year, and maybe finally getting out from the expectation of being a 3rd-round pick is distance himself where 49ers fans expect him to be great, and for some reason the being drafted as high as it's in his head. But now he's been a street free agent twice, and now he's got to prove himself. I mean, why not Jake Moody? I think he's better than Cardi and Ryland. I think. Talent-wise, he is
right, and that's what you have to look at, right? You've got guys that have a lot of talent, and when you're a team that doesn't have, let's be honest, a ton of big games and big kicks that you're asking guys to make, it makes it a little easier for them, right? Like, there's a lot less pressure overall. So I think that would make sense.
Punters. Now, we don't know what the status of Blake Gillikin. After week 5, he had a back injury, and that's weird that he didn't come back all year.
But also, you probably don't want a punter with a back injury, right?
That's what you're wondering. But like healthy, Gillikin's been fantastic. He led the NFL in punting average last year. He already held the Cardinals punting average. And then Matt Hawk. Remember, Matt Hawk got beat out by Nolan Cooney a couple of years ago. But when he came in the back end of the year, he was fantastic. Oh, and remember that he got an All-Pro vote. How did he get an All-Pro vote for playing in 7 games? I don't know, but he was really good. He hasn't been a full-time punter since 2022. Like, he hasn't been a team's punter for the full season since 2022. So he's kind of in that phase of his career. But I wouldn't mind either one of those guys coming back. And other than that, unless you want to go with, opinion. I was going to say old guys. There's names of Braden Mann. Yeah.
Tommy Townsend and Bradley Pinion are obviously like the best 2 guys, but they're going to, like, let's be honest, the Cardinals, both of their punters last year made less than Bradley Pinion and Tommy Townsend. But those guys are, those guys are really good. I would think that Gillikin's the guy if he can come back, but it's also hard, right? Like it's difficult to trust a punter with a back issue. It's just like a golfer with a back issue.
Well, and there's a new special teams coach. What is Gabriel gonna value? Like, how is he gonna do things differently than Jeff Rogers? Because Jeff Rogers was here from 2018 on. We could have kind of his special teams guys. These guys who've been good on special teams. Now we've got a different special teams coach, and does what. I know there's differences. I know there's differences of what coaches ask kickers to do with techniques and things like that. But I don't know what those are. How is Gabriel going to be different than Rogers? And will they view Hawk/Gillikin differently? Gillikin still, he's 28 years old, so you do worry about the back. Like, you don't come back after missing over half a season. You're like, well, how bad was that? And so, yeah. But I guess at the end of the day, with what we expect from the Cardinals, is the decision they make at punter that particularly important?
It could be. I mean, if their offense is as bad as it was last year.
Hopefully it's not. They brought in an offensive guy, right?
That's the goal.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back. That wraps this up. That wraps up this edition of the Rise Up Sierra podcast, Best of Cardinals Talk on the web. Next time we talk, we'll probably push to maybe just one show on, like, we'll figure that out, because free agency, well, no, we'll probably have some stuff, because free agency, the quote unquote legal tampering period begins on Monday, so there might be some news. We will talk free agency next week. That's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening. As always, we'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up, See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms, so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be red, see red, and of course, Rise Up, See Red.